Today, of course, is Yud Beis Tammuz, the 12th of Tammuz. And interestingly enough, by divine providence, the story of the previous Rebbe is very much connected to our Gemara. We're going to learn. Almost not even, you don't have to dig too deep to find the obvious connection. So, if you haven't yet, there's a book the previous Rebbe wrote a diary about his arrest and liberation. In Hebrew, it's known as a Shimbas HaMaiser, which means the diary of my arrest. In English, it's called The Heroic Struggle. Definitely a worthy read. It's like a mind-blowing read. To read what the previous Rebbe went through and how he dealt with it.
Rabbi Metzger, right? Wrote that.
Maybe he translated it. The Heroic Struggle is...
Not written, but yeah.
The Heroic Struggle is direct... I don't know if Metzger... The Heroic Struggle of the Metzger?
I got a copy from him when he was his father. Sorry.
It's a black cover with a picture of the previous Rebbe in front.
His father.
It's his father translated it, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, it's a remarkable story, and just in brief to give you an idea of what the previous Rebbe put up with and did. So, of course, the previous Rebbe is arrested because he's spreading Judaism, or what's otherwise known as counter-revolutionary activity. You know, the communists, and the way they kept a lot of these dictatorships going is they're in constant state of revolution. So it happens a lot of times with the revolutions. You have a revolution, but the organizers know how to do a revolution, but they don't know how to govern. So they do a revolution, and then now what? It happened in France. They made a revolution, but now what? They went right back to dictatorship. So it happens often. That's the case. When a country survives revolution and goes to a new direction, like something like the States, it's very remarkable. It's not the usual. Usually, you have a revolution based on the idea that people running a revolution know how to do a revolution, but they don't know how to just run a country in normal time. So the communists were basically in a 60, 70-year revolution. They were constantly in the revolution. They were constantly revolting. So if you misbehaved, you were counter-revolutionary activities, because we're trying to revolt against the thing and you're doing counter-revolutionary activities. The Tsar is dead for 40 years, doesn't matter. You're counter-revolutionary activity. That's the way these people were. And because of the way Russia was before with pogroms and whatnot, so many Jews were very enticed by this socialist idea, this equality idea. You can find them online today. Trotsky speeches, they're recorded. You can listen to them. They're in Russian, obviously, but you can get subtitles. And he convinced the Jews to join him because, well, safe travels. He convinced the Jews to join him because many Jews joined. First of all, because of the secularization that was going on at the time, the pre-war secularization, Enlightenment and socialist was like the newest, hottest, modern idea. But to a large degree, even otherwise religious Jews would have joined because they were promised end to pogroms. The pogroms happened because of the capitalists. Just the nobles and the simpletons, and the nobles preyed on the simpletons or riled up the Cossacks to go on the simpletons or whatnot. But if everybody's equal, then everybody's equal. You're not going to kill me. Right? And many Jews were convinced because of that to join. Even coming from Chabad and Hasidic backgrounds, families fell to communism. Communism was a blow to Judaism, not just by killing millions, literally millions, not just Jews. 40-something million people were killed by the communist machine, even more. Some crazy number. But also ideologically. Before communism became dangerous, it always was dangerous, but before it became brutal, before the reign of terror under Stalin, even before that, we lost thousands of Jews, tens of thousands of Jews, to the ideology of socialism. So the people who came to arrest the previous Rebbe were actually Jews. And some of them from backgrounds that even had Hasidic backgrounds, Hasidic heritage. And they fell for this idea, and then once they were stuck in it, they became part of the machine, and they ended up doing terrible things, unfortunately. So, when they arrested the previous Rebbe says that he made a hachlata isana, which means he made a strong resolution that the people who are arresting me are ayin v'efes mamish. They are absolutely nothing. He made a decision. He made a decision. That's it. They are nothing. They have guns. They're going to kill him. Fine. So be it. They are nothing. So he stood up to them, not just in matters of religion. There's famous stories of him him insisting that they bring him his talis and tefillin, which they did, and all the stories. But when they came to arrest him, for example, they told him, when they came to arrest him, I think when they came to arrest him, they told him to stand up. He said no. What does that have to do with Judaism? What are you putting your life at risk for that? Finished. He decided they're nothing. They're nothing. So they told him stand up. No, I'm sitting. They ask him questions in Russian, even though in Russian he's answering in Yiddish. They're asking him questions. He starts telling them stories. They start hollering at him. Don't you know where I am? Don't you know where you are? What are you doing? I'm doing what I want. And
As if they didn't exist.
He decided they don't exist. He decided they're ayin ve'efes. He decided that they are nothing. This is a klippah, and klippah is nothing. Finished. They're nothing. And it's not just in matters of Judaism, but he stood up to them and making them absolutely nothing. When they arrested him, he wasn't fazed, and then liberated, he wasn't fazed. Not fazed, like completely, like equilibrium. The same person before, after, torturing him, beating him, yelling at him, hollering at him. I mean, you're talking about people who killed people on an hourly basis. You don't play around with this. It's
killing a rat.
Yeah, it was next. They were killing machine. It was like,
They pointed a gun at his head.
that was much earlier. They pointed a gun at his head. His famous story. Freidiker Rebbe describes it. The first time they brought him in for interrogation, this is years earlier, before they arrested him, he was sitting at a room with like a ches shaped table, and everybody had like a gun sitting in front of them, and they're talking, and the previous Rebbe is not answering, or he's not cooperating with the way they want to, and they picked up the gun, and they told him this toy made a lot of people talk. Previous Rebbe said it makes people who have two gods in one world, this toy makes them talk. If you have one God in two worlds, it doesn't mean anything. It's not something you can fathom what this means. Where the people who literally can control and end your life in a second, and you're just not responding, just not caring, just completely unfazed. Even when they come to tell him that he was freed, and you told him it was in stages. First, he was told that instead of the death sentence, he's going to be sentenced to 5 years and first 12 years, then 3 years. It was of exile, and finally, after he was in exile for 10 days or so, they told him he's free to go. But when they told him that he's going to travel to exile, based on the calculation, he was going to arrive on Shabbos. And he said, "I'm not going." Al pi halacha, not only halachically speaking, not only was he allowed to go and arrive on Shabbos, because this is literally a question of life and death, he actually probably was obligated to go. He's probably obligated to go by halacha. Didn't matter. I'm not arriving on Shabbos. You don't exist. You told me I have to go and it's on Shabbos. I'm not going. So they screamed at him, if you don't go now, you're going to stay here. So he said, okay, I'll stay here. Staying there meant, it wasn't as if the people who were interrogating him, it seems that within the KGB office there was some dispute what to do. Because from the top, they were getting, the reason why the previous Rebbe on the physical, the natural order was, Freidiker was liberated, was because it was pressure. It was political pressure from other governments, from other countries. So from the top down, they need to get the previous Rebbe out. But the people in the middle, they were inching to implement the original death sentence. And staying there, and one guy decides to change his mind, it's just a question of life and death. Not even like, he says, if I'm arriving on Shabbos, I'm not traveling. So I'll stay here. I mean, just wild and crazy stuff.
Something came to me a while ago, and it really hit me hard. Because in the Torah it says that God is going to make us into a small nation.
Yeah.
Nation of priests.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's why he keeps cutting us down all the time.
Oy vey.
Keep us as a
Small nation. Not that pasuk.
Not that pasuk. There's a different pasuk. It says, Ma'atim kol am.
That's not.
It's not a prophecy. It's a state of being.
It's not the ideal situation.
I don't know. I don't want to speculate on that kind of thing.
It's scary.
No, we can grow in numbers. Like, for example, the time of the
I don't want to speculate on such a thing.
the Roman Empire.
We were very
We
big.
were about 10% of the Roman Empire. Unfortunately, the number of things didn't work out, but we don't have to be a small number. If it is, it's because we're not doing always the right thing. But no, it's not a requirement.
At any rate, it's something I don't want to speculate on, and I certainly, like I mentioned before, I'm not God's lawyer, and thank God doesn't need lawyers.
I'm just telling you.
But look at another example. We
Yeah.
trying were at least 2 million people. That's a large percentage of the world at that time, and now we're only
Yeah.
15 million.
Anyway, so-
We've grown since we're 3,000 years.
That's right. We should have been 100 million people.
At least.
There are a number of lessons that a person can take from the previous episode story, besides for being awe-inspiring in the fact, and just the defiance and the Mesiras Nefesh and the extent of Mesiras Nefesh. The Rebbe has all kinds of explanations why the Freidiker Rebbe did this. If he's obligated to go, why is he staying? Number of explanations. So sometimes yes, sometimes no, especially when it's a question of life and death. But one of the reasons, there's a number of things, but one of them is, for example, is if the previous Rebbe is like the symbol of Judaism in Russia. So even if he's allowed to, but if there's a perceived compromise, if the Rebbe, the leader, compromises in the smallest way, then the people observing will say, "Oh, it's no big deal. We can also compromise a little bit," even though he's allowed to. And it wouldn't have been a halacha compromise, but the previous Rebbe didn't want to show any compromise. Also, this idea, as I mentioned before, the previous made a decision that they're nothing, so they're nothing. Period. So for us, thank God, we're not in such a society. We lived thank God, in a very comfortable society where we're aided in our Judaism, not persecuted for it. So where's the lesson for us to take home? And there's different ways a person can think about it. But one way to think about it is this idea of making a decision. I don't react. So the situation around me not the way I want it to be. So what? I have my values. I have my commitments. Things around me aren't following suit. Therefore, changes my commitment. The people want to kill me. Doesn't change my commitment. People want to free me. Still also doesn't change my commitment. That's what the previous reaction was. There's no
Either way.
Plus, I have my values. I know who I serve. I know where I stand. Happens around me, not my business. I don't not my business, but I don't react, because this is reaction means that the surrounding has some hold on you. And the previous it was demonstrating that a Jew. Surroundings don't have a hold on a Jew. A Jew has hold on the surroundings. And if the surroundings don't conform, finish, so they don't conform. It doesn't change my values. It doesn't change what I stand for. Recently I was listening to this. I'm driving down to New York for Gimel Tammuz. I was listening to, it's 25 years since Gimel Tammuz, right? So I listened to a Farbrengen, with Rebbe's Farbrengen, 25 years since his Rebbe passed away in Yud Shvat. So Yud Shvat, 1975, Tosh Lamed Hey, which is 25 years from when the previous Rebbe passed away. And the whole theme of the Farbrengen there is about being a king. Jews are Bnei Malachim, we're princes. Right? And a son of a king doesn't need to be anointed to be king. He becomes king automatically. Right? If a Jewish king, because halacha, if a king becomes a king because he's appointed, then he has to be anointed with oil. But if he's a son of a king, he gets it automatically. So Jews being called Bnei Malachim, we have the title king automatically, just by dint of our birth and what it means to live up to the standard of kings. And one of the things that it talks about is the idea of a king is the king is not subject to his circumstance. He creates a circumstance. This is the way he wants to be. This is the way he is. In parentheses, this is how a way of understanding how teshuvah works. How does teshuvah work? Torah says you don't do something, you do it. You get punished. Where's the teshuvah involved here? So how does teshuvah work? It's like a king who has Rebbe doesn't talk about this, but this explains this in general. If you have a king has a country, and he has a bunch of laws. So he has judges and he has policemen and he has everything who implement the law. Right? So if you break the rule, the policeman comes in. But if you manage to get an audience to the king can decide, rule is suspended for you. The king creates the laws, and thus he's essentially beyond the law. So a king has this capacity that's not subject to his circumstance. So likewise, a Jew is a king in the sense that a Jew is not subject to his circumstance. And it begins like this, that if a Jew starts out being a king, it's actually similar to what Rebbe said last night on the video. But a Jew starts being a king in his own personal life. I have a Yetzer Hara that wants this, and I have a Nefesh Bahamas, an animal soul that wants to do that, but I'm a king. I'm subject to my circumstance. Well, because my body says I want that, therefore I do it. Never mind the circumstance out there. Start with the circumstances of my own being. I'm a king in my own being. So I don't want to do it, I don't do it. My body wants it, so what? And then from there it becomes a king never goes to the whole state level, it becomes a king in his own family. Right? And he starts to think about, conducting his family in the way it's supposed to be, and then his community, and then his city and country. They're talking about building this whole system of shluchim, ties it in. But this idea of a Jew not subject to his circumstance. A Jew is a king, then he's a king. This is the way. This is his values. This is what he believes, and this is what he does. And he does it without worry or without reaction to positive reaction, negative reaction. Nothing to do. This is my commitment. This is my life. This is what I do. It doesn't matter what everybody else thinks, or even what my own Nefesh Muhammad thinks. This is what I believe. This is what I do. It doesn't matter even internally what I tell myself. Stick to who I am, and I move forward.
In the video that came out last week, along with Rabbi Sachs.
Yeah.
The four interviews.
Yeah.
George Rohr was one of the four, right?
Yeah.
You saw it?
Yeah.
So
Video called Hidden Treasures.
Right. So you remember when he goes to the Rebbe and he was trying to say how much what he had accomplished.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly the details of it. He mentioned that
He had a minion. He made a beginner's minion in his show somewhere,
and
Manhattan.
we were even able to get Jews who really don't know anything or ignorant or not connected.
Oh, yeah.
And the Rebbe God's face got very serious and very.
He said Jews who have no background.
Or the Jews who have no background.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jews who have no background. And the Rebbe said to him, all Jews are royalty.
Yeah, that's right. That's the reason. The reason royalty.
All Jews are royalty.
That's right.
How do you speak of someone with no background when every Jew, no matter where he is from the royal family? You know what I'm saying? It was very
Yeah, similar idea.
Yeah.
He's born a king. This is who he is. It's like anyway, what are we going to say? Okay, so how is it connected to the Gemara?
People go before the Rebbe, right? And clearly, no background, connection, nothing. And he would look at them as part of the whole royal family.
Yeah.
Probably never doesn't know what a Gemara is. Never doesn't know what Shulchan Aruch is. Doesn't know anything. He's looking at that person. He's saying, "You're royalty. You just have to bring it out."
It's an unbelievable way of looking at it.
It's like
the neshama is from.
Yeah.
So therefore, it is royalty.
Yeah. But looking at other Yid that way is an unbelievable way to live.
Exactly. But also the potential a person has.
His roots. He's rooted in royalty.
So let's see how it's connected to the Gemara today. It's connected to the Gemara because like this. We're holding at back up. Tan Rabbanon. It's the fourth line down from the widest set of lines. The first word Tan Rabbanon. So the Gemara mentioned last week about the story of Daniel and of Chanania, Mishael, and Azaria and Nebuchadnezzar, and the Gemara mentioned specifically that there's one opinion at least that the people who were resurrected, the dry bones that were resurrected in the valley, were those who were killed by Nebuchadnezzar for showing off their physique and making the Chaldite women excited. So they were killed by Nebuchadnezzar. And they were revived by Yecheskel. Now Yecheskel revives them around this time, as we'll see, at the same time of the story of Chanania, Mishael, Azaria, Bekivshin, the fire, when the Chanania, Mishael, and Azaria, the three scholars, prophets, part of the Anshknes Sagdola, who are what's the word I'm looking for? Not contemporaries and colleagues of Daniel, and when they were thrown into the furnace, this is the same time. So the Gemara now relates a little bit about that story of Chanania, Mishael, and Azaria being thrown into the furnace. So the Gemara says like this: Tanan Rabbanan, our sages taught, at the time when Nebuchadnezzar, the wicked king, threw as Chanania, Mishael, Azaria l'kivshin eish, when he threw Chanania, Mishael, and Azaria into the burning furnace, God told Yecheskel, I guess a few miles away, he wasn't right there, he was somewhere else. He was near this valley of Dura, and Chanania, Mishael, and Azaria are in the capital with Nebuchadnezzar. But God tells the prophet Yecheskel, go and revive the dead at the valley of dry bones in Dura. So it's the same time, while the Chanania, Mishael, and Azaria are in the furnace, Yecheskel is reviving the dead at the valley of dry bones. And at least according to one opinion, these are actually people that Nebuchadnezzar killed earlier when the Jews were marching. Well, there's a few different opinions, but it's one of the opinions.
Daniel
No.
Lion's den.
Daniel's lion's den.
Yeah.
Similar story. Okay, so Kivin Chehechia Isan, as soon as Chanania, Mishael Azaria, as soon as Yecheskel revived the dead in Dura, so Chehechia Isan, when they were revived, these bones, these people that were now revived, they arrived on the scene where Chanania, Mishael, and Azaria are in the furnace. The Tafchlu la'oser rasha panav, and they struck this wicked one in his face. I don't know if it means literally they went up and hit him, or it means they shocked him kind of thing. They arrived and smacked him in the face. I don't know if it means literally, but that's the literal translation is they hit him in the face.
The Rashi explains it could be one of those they made killing from those bones.
Rashi makes it quite literal.
Yeah, but it could be.
Anyway, that's the Gemara here. They hit him in the face. So Yecheskel asks, Mativon shel elu, who are these people? What's the deal with these people that are here now, these dry bones? So Amrullah, they told him, his ministers told him, Chavarei and Shalelu, the friends of these three people are lying that are in the furnace. The friend, Yecheskel, Machayim Eisim B'Kazdura, made revival of the dead in Dura, in that valley there. So that's who these people are. So Pasach Amar, so Nebuchadnezzar opened up, obviously super impressed by the words of Hashem, by the actions of Hashem reviving the dead, and he opens up to praise Hashem. And this is a pasuk. And the pasuk reads, Asui Kamar Ravrivin, you, how great you are, V'Timui Kamar Takifin. Here, see. Sorry. I tell you how great is his signs. I'm reading from Steinsaltz's translation because the Aramaic of Daniel is even harder than the Aramaic of the Gemara. How great are his signs and how mighty are his wonders. And how great is his kingdom. Malchus Olam, the king of the world. V'Shatanim Devidar, and his dominion is from generation to generation. So he begins to praise Hashem after this incredible miracle.
If I did the Jews are kings, Hashem is the king, and we're like this.
It's Prince, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's connected already. But we're going to see even greater connection.
And then this is Pas, of course.
Yeah. So Amr Rabbi Yitzchak says, Yitzchak Zav Reitech L'Tayv Piv Shal Eisir Rasha. Molten gold should have been placed in the mouth of this wicked one, Nebuchadnezzar. Why? Shal Malale Ba Malach V'Sitr Al Piv. Not for an angel if there were not for an angel that struck him in the mouth. An angel came and struck Nebuchadnezzar in the mouth. Why? Because Bikesh the Gan is called Shiris Vishbachash Amadav B'Sifatilim. When Nebuchadnezzar was about to go on a rant in praising Hashem with incredible poetry that he was capable of doing, to the point that it would have embarrassed King David's poetry of Tehillim. So an angel struck him. That's how impressed, that's how in awe he was of Hashem, that he would have outdone King David in Tehillim. So an angel struck him in the face. So Rabbi Yitzchak says, if we're not for the angels, then they should have put molten gold into his mouth to shut him up. And molten gold because he's a king, so I'm not going to put molten metal. We'll put gold.
It actually means other things with Lashon Kalem.
Sorry?
Euphemism. They put respect. I mean, it meant other things as well to his mouth.
Yeah.
Nishan Malia. They should have.
That's what I'm saying. He uses the language of gold to make it sound nice, but the point is, what if they should have shut him up?
Else into his mouth.
Okay.
Want to say it
yes, I want to move a little forward. I want to get to the point where it's connected to Yudbeis Tammuz.
We have the connection right here.
The connection with the king, but again,
they gave their lives, and
so we're going to see in a moment even the degree.
Yeah, of course, not all the miracles, just the principle.
So let's see. Tanur Rabbanon, there's a state.
It was a great miracle. Even the non-Jewish king acknowledged it. You can imagine if the communists would have said, which
is actually interesting. They would point
drop
out
communism, and the Jews become Jews, and the Goyim become Bnei Noach.
It's actually interesting
that should have happened. But of course,
it's interesting what you're saying is you're seeing how Nebuchadnezzar begins to praise the king, to praise Hashem, even though he remains a Rasha and remains a king.
At least he preached the praise in something.
So it's interesting that the Rebbe points out how the same people who arrested the previous Rebbe at the end aided him to get out. The same communists got him out. Everybody talked about that. How even though communism remained communism, they remained antithetical to Judaism, but the same people who arrested the previous Rebbe helped them get out. So I guess a similar thing. Nebuchadnezzar is torturing them and he's praising Hashem. So I guess, thank you. That's a good, interesting connection. I actually think of another connection in a moment, but we'll see.
Balak?
Sorry?
Balak?
Similar to Balak, who begins with cursing the Jews, but ends up praising the Jews, even though he remains... Bilam, the prophet. So that's another good connection. But there's a Gemara here in a minute which describes the personality of the previous Rebbe. So let's see. Tana Rabbanan, the Gemara says, Shishin Misin Nasa B'Yisrael Yom. There were 6 miracles happened on that day, on the day of the fire in the furnace. Be'eluhin, this is what they are. Tzaf HaKivshin. First of all, the furnace rose up, like started floating in the air.
Because it was sunk into the ground.
It was sunk into the ground. It was raised up. It was a pit, and it was raised up. V'nifritz HaKishan. It broke out.
Yeah, they could see. Because before the problem was they couldn't see the miracle.
You couldn't see the inside of the.
You could,
yeah, that's a good point. You couldn't see the miracle happening inside because they were. So that they opened up.
The miracle happens, but if it's not visible to everyone, it
doesn't show off.
Impact. Yeah, this is really showing off.
The cement melted. There's different versions, different meanings, but this is one of them. The nepach tzelem al panav, and the image, the graven image that Nebuchadnezzar built and demanded everybody bow down to and praise to, turned onto his face.
That's a good one in Russia. Remember the famous statue with Lenin that they toppled it down in 1889.
They toppled it on his face.
Yeah,
so Nebuchadnezzar built an image and the thing came down on him. And then the Nisri for Abba Machias, miracle number 5 is that there were 4, as we'll see, 4 of 8 associates that Nebuchadnezzar had that were killed, that were burnt that day. And Yecheskel revived the dead at the valley of Dura, as we just described. The Gemara says, Kula Gemara, all five out of these 6 things are derived by tradition. We know this is an oral tradition that these 5 miracles happened. But Abba Machias, the fact that there were 4 kings, 4 associates of Nebuchadnezzar that were killed, that's Kara. There's a verse which backs this up. So I'm going to have Rabbi Steinsaltz give me some help here. But the pasuk reads, the pasuk reads, Nebuchadnezzar Malka Shlach Leminchash, and Nebuchadnezzar the king sent for Michnash Achshtapta Signo Pachtata Agardia Gavdia Devarte Tavtia V'Choshtane Medinasa. So he asked for satraps, I don't know what that means, I guess a certain kind of ministers, prefects, governors, counselors, treasurers, justice, and magistrates, and rulers of the provinces. So the point is that the Gemara, the verse lists that Nebuchadnezzar called for 8 different ministers, in some capacity or another, ministers, satraps, counselors, treasurers, but there are 8 of them.
Needs to assemble the rest.
Sorry? Right, he asked to assemble, and then the rest are a list of people, list of different titles of people who arrived. There's 8. Then it goes on to say, Isi Givran Yudai, bring the Jewish people. There were certain Jewish people who weren't bowing down to the idol that Nebuchadnezzar built, and therefore they were called forth to be killed, etc., etc., etc. The Ksiv, and later when it describes the actual event of the 3 of them in the pit, it reads, Umisnakshin Achshtavta Signayo Upachta Vadove Malka Chazla Gvore Ilach. And the satraps, prefects, governors, and the king's counselors gathered and saw these men. So when Nebuchadnezzar calls forth the people, he lists 8 titles, and then it describes how the people were brought forth to be thrown into the furnace, Chanania, Mishael, and Azaria, and then at the end it only says only 4 of them saw. So he called forth 8, and only 4 left to see. What happened to the other 4? Thus the implication from the verse that 4 of them were killed that day. So that's the 6th miracle, the only miracle which comes in the verse. Now the final line. The verse is like this. Tani Dvei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. This is where I wanted to get to, and this is the connection to the previous we were describing before. Tani Dvei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Afilu b'shas sakana, even when a person's in extreme danger. Lo yishana adam esatzmei min rabbanos. A person should not change himself. Literally means a person shouldn't change himself from the rabbinate. It means to say, your conviction, your composure, and whatever position it is that you hold, in this case the rabbinate, prior to the danger, keep that very same composure even in danger. This is what the Gemara Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, learning from Chanania, Mishael, Azaria, from these 3 who were thrown into the furnace. Good morning, Shalom Aleichem. Shenemar, as the verse reads, Ba'adin Gavrei Ba'alach Kaftiu B'Sivelayon Pashteyan V'Char. These men were bound, and when they were thrown into the furnace, they were bound in their mantles, their tunics, and their hats, which means they were wearing the kapota, gartel, and their hat. Not literally, but essentially, they were wearing a tunic, their gartel, their waist belts, and their hats. This to say, they're thrown into the furnace with a complete composure. And this is what I wanted to connect to the previous Rebbe before. There's no reactions. They're throwing me into the furnace. So what? I'm still in my hat and jacket and my kapata because this is who I am. My gartel all. Throw in, take me out. It doesn't matter. A Jew keeps his composure. As you described before, a Jew is b'nei malachim. We had, what was the verse we had here? What was the verse connection you mentioned before? Yeah, we're describing God as the king of the universe, and the Jewish people are considered the kings, the sons of the kings. So we're princes. We have kingly. We're the
sons of Hashem. It's not
renaissance. We have kingly persona,
our lineage as well.
And thus a Jew is not nespal. A Jew doesn't react into the furnace. Communists, and today's version of communism is a few good movies. We don't react. Circumstances around us mean nothing. A Jew has his conviction. A Jew knows what he has to do, and he goes forward. Not only does he not react, as mentioned before, not only doesn't react to outside of him, but even his own Yetzer Hara.
We don't blink.
His Yetzer Hara says, do something else, doesn't matter. I'm the king, I do what I want. I want is to serve Hashem, and that's a Jew's behavior. Previous Rebbe connected to our Gemara back to Chanania and Mishael Azaria. Even as thrown into the furnace, they remained and retained their composure.
You actually said that, so they shouldn't look
yeah, they don't remain. They're all going crazy.
And then his enemies will be
they keep their full composure, and the
enemies will be like.
That's right. That's correct, and that's that's right. The best way to what the enemy really wants is to get a reaction out of you.
Sure.
When you don't react, that puts them down. Like the previous Rebbe says this. The Rebbe points out the fact that these people who were arrested, the previous Rebbe, when the previous Rebbe was ignoring them, wasn't answering the questions, and one of them, who came from Chabad lineage, as mentioned before, yelled out, "Rebbe, they're going to hurt you." And the previous Rebbe points to the fact that he called him Rebbe. Even in the state where he's torturing him, he calls him Rebbe. Why is he calling him Rebbe? Because he sees that even when he's there with the gun, he's the one that's doing the torturing, and yet the previous Rebbe is not reacting. Now he sees this is a Rebbe. This is a Jew living up to what it means to be a Jew without reacting, keeping in line with Chanania and Mishael Azaria, as we learned in the Gemara here.
Did they survive that furnace?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that was the whole miracle. They were thrown into the furnace and they survived. As I mentioned before, that the one of the miracles was that the oven opened up, so that people can see inside and see the miracle, and the cement melted, so people can see what was going on, how they were in the furnace and it's surviving, keeping their composure the whole time, as we just described.
There was an angle with them to kind of cool the fire off.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
Maybe it's not a fire.
We'll get into that tomorrow. God willing, about the angel who helped them. Okay. Have a wonderful day. We'll continue more of the incredible story tomorrow.